Hi, I'm Ben.
And I'm Josh.
And this is the Bad at Magic podcast, a podcast about games, life, and other things. And welcome to episode 14.
Episode 14, even numbers. Gotta love even numbers.
So,
all right, so the most interesting thing that I have about these even numbers is I ask people when I see them about this. Like when you're in the car and you're driving somewhere and it's you and your spouse and you turn up the radio, are you a person that has to land on even numbers, or are you a person that has to land on multiples of 5?
I've made a deliberate effort to try not to go to like multiples of 5 or prime numbers or, whatever. Like the best volume for my TV is 17, and I'm just comfortable with that.
Oh, no, sir. That's completely unacceptable. 17, get out of here. Nobody listens to. Oh, oof. All right, so I'm a multiples.
It's the right level. Who cares what the number is?
It's important. Okay, the order of the universe dictates. No, I'm an even numbers guy. So, like, if my wife leans over, she's a multiples of. Actually, is she a multiple? Most of the time, she's a multiples of 5 because I'll put it to like 16 on the stereo, and she'll like notch it down 1 to 15, and okay. I'll let her get away with that most of the time. Multiples of 5, I guess, are okay. If we can settle on a 0, like a 10, we're both happy with 10.
Nice. So the fact that you both care is interesting. Like, generally, I would say I care and Alicia doesn't.
Okay.
To her, it's too loud.
Well, and that makes for a happy marriage, right? That's just one place where you two are compatible because one person cares about something arbitrary and the other person doesn't. As long as you don't overlap, then you don't have random fights about the volume of the radio, because in my experience being married, like those are the fights that are going to get you divorced.
How is it both arbitrary and important to you?
Well, it's arbitrary but important. Like I acknowledge that that's completely arbitrary and dumb and has no meaning for anything, but I can't make my brain not care about the multiples of the volume on the radio.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we should start a thread on this on the subreddit and see if we can get the audience to win. Like, what number do you set the dial to, or do you care whether it's an even or an odd number or a multiple of 5?
Yep, there's going to be people that arbitrarily like this episode more than episode 15, and vice versa because of this phenomenon.
All right, well, welcome to episode 14. So last time, as you and I were discussing how bad at magic some of our favorite intellectual properties are, we ran out of time as we were about to delve into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so you and I got together last weekend on our off week and recorded a bonus episode where we just talk about how bad at magic the Marvel Cinematic Universe is.
That was a wonderful discussion. I loved having it with you, but recording every weekend is putting a strain on my relationship with my wife. I will throw that out there.
So that's why it's going to be a bonus episode. We're not going to do that every week, but because it wasn't a normal episode and it didn't have our usual stuff surrounding it, we turned it into a bonus episode and we made it available on Patreon. So there's no minimum limit if you want to be a Patreon supporter, but if you go to patreon.com/badatmagic, you can join to be one of our patrons there on patreon.com, and you can have access to episode 13.5 and hear Josh and I talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe being bad at magic.
So we realize that doing a podcast, like, you're getting this for free. Like, you need to acknowledge that. Like, we're doing this out of the goodness of our hearts for you people. So, I mean, and now with Ben's input, like, we're doing extra bonus stuff as an extra incentive for you to just, like, throw
at the peril of Josh's marriage.
That's right. I'm endangering my relationship for you people. So, hey, toss a coin to your Witcher and go on Patreon and get some bonus content.
All right. Well, over the course of this, I think we delved into a few good areas. One is that we've started to establish a system where us as the co-hosts of the Bad at Magic podcast will evaluate how bad at magic things are. And I love this. And I think we can do this going forward. We've found some other areas we can definitely go into, and maybe as new things come out, we can kind of use this template that we've established of evaluating whether something's hard or soft magic, and then how well they adhere to Sanderson's 3 laws of magic for utilizing magic in storytelling. One of our listeners pointed out that we hadn't talked about Lord of the Rings, which would be a great one to do at some point in the future.
I think this might be... So, there's always whole big genres. Like, we didn't talk about a lot of the Disney movies either, like the Disney animated movies. I feel like that's something that we can wrap up into maybe some bonus content because there's so many in that genre. But then we have a bunch of random one-off, like really good movies, like the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Maybe we could sprinkle those throughout the normal episodes as like a segment.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love that idea. Now, as we were doing this, we came up with a couple of new film theories that I just wanted to touch on real briefly. So the first one was, I think me and one of my listeners were discussing this after the fact. And, it's my wife, Alicia. And we were talking about the origin of the magic system in Groundhog Day. You know, Bill Murray's character, Phil Connors, just kind of stumbles into this time loop where he's reliving the same day over and over. Well, ultimately, what brings him out of it is that Andie MacDowell's character, Rita, stays with him voluntarily. And my wife noted, and as many times as I've watched that film, that this has some striking similarities with Beauty and the Beast, which is that the Beast, the selfish, self-absorbed, caustic beast, is not released from his curse until Beauty falls in love with him.
Yeah, like that's kind of an allegory for like he has to go through some inner change to recognize that to change in some way that other people would approve of, which is both a good and a bad message when you think about it. But at the same time, like that's kind of a long-running trope in a lot of stories is that like the antagonist or even the protagonist is their own worst enemy. And like they have to redeem themselves through like finding change or some action that they have to do that they wouldn't have done at the beginning of the movie. Like this is
specifically in the respect of answering the question about the source of this unknown magic. Where did it come from? What are the rules governing it? What will release him from the spell? He does lots of good things after he goes through the 5 stages of grief, but the only one that actually releases him is the love of Rita.
So, I don't know. Like these are the questions that make the movie more interesting. Like if they had answered these questions, it would have been a worse movie, in my opinion. Like we take all of that, the weirdness that's happening, and we shove it to the background because that's not the important thing that's happening. It's an interesting plot device to drive the change of this character. But what we care about is Phil and his transformation. And can I point this out? I didn't point this out the last time we talked about Groundhog Day, but like that movie, what made me really click in that movie, like how amazing like that was, like his transformation specifically, is he didn't know how to play the piano at all. And then he went to piano lessons every day, presumably. And then there's a scene in the movie where he is laying down no sheet music, like full orchestral, just like ballads and pop jams.
Jazz.
Totally different genres, all like back to back without a break. Like, how long does it take, one lesson at a time, to become a complete beginner, never having touched a piano, to a total like piano master?
So if you want to read some fascinating fan content on the web, there's some great fan theories out there about how long he was stuck in his time loop based on the skills that he developed. How long does it take to get that good at the piano from zero? How long does it take to learn to be able to toss cards into a hat from across the room?
10,000 hours, right?
Right, exactly. So, if you add up all of those things that he seemingly learned to do, you can get a basic idea of how many years he was stuck in this time loop before he was finally released.
Yeah, that sounds... that would be terrible. That, frankly, would be terrible.
But to sum up my little theory, a new lens through which to look at the story of Groundhog Day is a modern allegory of a modern retelling of the story of Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, everybody loves that movie.
From the position of the Beast rather than from that of Beauty.
I'm gonna hijack whatever you're gonna say next, and we're gonna bring it right back to the Beauty and the Beast that everyone knows and loves, which is the Disney cartoon.
Good, because our listeners want to hear your theory about why Gaston is not the bad guy.
This is an important point that I need to make here. Okay.
Okay.
What I am putting forth as my argument, the baseline of my argument, is not that Gaston is a good guy, not that Gaston isn't a narcissistic jerk. Okay. What I'm saying is that he is not the villain of this movie. He is not the antagonist. He's kind of a bad person, but he is not the bad guy in the movie.
Okay, so to make that assertion, we have to say then what constitutes the villain? What actually gives someone that title?
No. The burden of proof is on you. You're not going to do this. The burden of proof is on you to prove to me that Gaston is a bad guy, because nothing that he does in the movie is a villain's actions.
Well, if we want to promote this from analyze this from a pure literary sense, like we did some of the ones last week, last podcast, where we talk about who's the protagonist and who the antagonist is. The protagonist is the one who changes, and the antagonist is the one who provokes the change. And in the case of Beauty and the Beast, the protagonist is, of course, Beast, and the antagonist, I guess, is Belle. So Anton's just kind of like, he's just background noise.
Gaston,
Anton. Sorry.
Who are you saying, Anton? Get out of here, Italian dude. No, all right. So, but like I understand what you're saying. That like, yes, the story is about Belle and Beast and the transformation that Beast goes through. That's the story. But Disney movies are made for kids, and kids need to have a bad guy, so you can have this big action sequence in the third act, so that climax is at a point where the kids and everybody knows that everything is resolved and it's a happy ending. Because otherwise, like, the movie just kind of would have ended when Belle and Beast hugged at one point, and like maybe like had a little smooch, and then he turned it back into the prince, and then the movie just is over. So that kind of peters out.
It's funny because you just described the climax of Groundhog Day.
Yeah, you see, like that's it. Like the plot just kind of ends and it's over.
Yeah.
But Gaston, like, all right, so we're talking about a French village in like the mid to late 1800s. Will you give me that one? And we have Belle, who is the clear outsider of the whole village. Like, the entire opening number is about how weird she is and how she doesn't fit in with anybody else. She doesn't fit in. Yeah. She can read. She lives up in a house on a hill outside of the village with her father, where constant explosions can be heard.
No, she looks down on everybody.
Hang on a second. Constant explosions are heard in this house, right? She is like one snarky comment away from being burned at the stake for being a witch. This is the problem, is we're looking through the lens of modern like feminism and like women's and equal rights.
She is enjoying a bit of hot girl diplomatic immunity then?
No, but nobody thinks that. Nobody thinks she's the hot girl. Everyone thinks she's the weird crazy one.
Gaston does.
Gaston is the only person. There is an entire subgenre of romantic comedies about dudes realizing that the kind of frumpy, weird girl that they've been hanging out with the whole movie is actually a good person, and that's the person that they want to be with. Gaston skips that whole thing, and he's like to the whole town, in defiance of the whole town. It's like, I don't know what y'all are talking about. She's great.
Wow.
Points to Gaston there, right?
Everybody else just thinks she's weird, and he's like, no, she's the best.
Towards the end of the movie, the father comes back and like, you have to help me. Belle is trapped in a castle with a beast, and I have this mirror, this magic mirror to prove it. The whole town should have burned him at the stake, and Gaston said, no, hang on a second. We're going to rally. I believe him. We're going to take the whole town, and we're going to storm an enchanted castle with an 8-foot giant monster thing to save the girl. In any other movie, he's the hero.
Yeah, they kind of couch it as narcissism, though. You know, he doesn't want to just go save the girl that he's decided is one for him. He wants to add another trophy head to his wall in the bar. No, he wants to marry her. He wants to have children. He made that very clear when he proposed to her outside of her house, okay? And now everybody looks at that. Again, we're looking at that through the modern lens of like, oh, he's totally objectifying her as a woman. Yeah, it's the mid-1800s. Like, that's what society was then. Like, I'm sorry to tell you this, but like, if you look from a historical perspective, all right,
that was
if you
want
to be really historically accurate, then how old was she?
She should have been like 14. But no, we're not going to go there. What else happens that is ridiculous? All right, so the one thing, and this is the weakest part of my argument, is everybody says like, oh, well, the one horrible thing that Gaston does is he tries to get the father committed to an insane asylum and uses that as leverage to try to get Belle to marry him.
Yeah, my counter argument seems pretty down, dirty, rotten, down low.
That's pretty dirty, rotten, and down low. I agree. However, there is a legitimate argument to be made that guy needed to be committed. Like, again, he's the weird guy living by himself out on the hill, making steam-powered things with axes on them that can like destroy stuff and kill people. Like he's the clear outsider. He's raving about this magic castle that no one's ever seen or heard of. He saw some giant thing out in the woods. He won't shut up about it. Like, he's clearly having delusions. He was already weird in the first place. There is a very strong argument to commit this man in the first place. So really, like, it's the opposite. It's more like, listen, your dad's getting committed. I might be able to swing something, but I need a little incentive. Like, this is not something I'm going to do for a random person. This is going to be something I do for a family member.
All right. Well, you know, I'm only humoring you here because I find that your unique thought on this matter be very entertaining. But I'm sure this is a very unpopular opinion whenever you bring it up. Of course, Gaston is a bad guy. What are you talking about, Josh?
Typically, people go, of course Gaston is the bad guy because the movie frames him as the bad guy.
Right.
And then, like, you put the burden of proof on the other person, and I start making these points. And usually, like, most people I talk to, I can flip them. Like, wow, Gaston wasn't really... Like, it's the opposite of Wreck-It Ralph. Just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you're a bad guy.
All right, I'm memeing that for the show notes.
Well, I mean, like... He's not the best person in the world. He's narcissistic. He's a jerk. He objectifies women, which... per the time frame that his character is supposed to exist in, was probably normal. But that doesn't make him the villain. And like we cheered and we're happy when he gets killed. When the beast who kidnapped the girl and held her against her will for many months kills the guy who rallied the town to save her, we're supposed to be happy about it.
Oh, no. It was one of those standard Disney deaths, you know, where the bad guy is... The quote-unquote bad guy is stabbing our protagonist with a knife, and then he incidentally falls from, a great height to an, unseen death. Yeah.
He wasn't killed so much as he died.
Right.
Or he fell into a river. He could be okay.
He was a victim of his own narcissism. And they really play it up like that in that scene. You know, he's doing something dangerous, and I think someone says to him, like, look out, you're on the ledge, or whatever, and... he slips and falls to his death.
We're like I said at the beginning of this whole thing, he's a narcissistic jerk, but he's not the villain.
Okay.
That's my whole thing. You
can have it.
You can no. You can't give me something that I proved undeniably. Like this is I had it coming into this conversation, and I'm just informing you.
I was ready at the beginning to just hear what you had to say about this, but I already was off the train because I don't think as far as antagonist and protagonist goes, Gaston isn't even in the picture. He was just filling a role in a traditional Disney film.
Yeah, exactly. But all right, I'm going to open up to the listeners then. Listeners, I'm that guy at the card table. I've got the sign. Gaston is not the bad guy. Change my mind. I'll see you in the Reddit.
All right, we're doing that. Let's do some bad at parenting, but I will do the bad at parenting here. So I started a discussion on Facebook this week. I didn't put it on the Bad at Magic page, but I'm going to open the discussion up there. I got an email from my kid's school asking me if I would donate time, funds, and supplies to the school carnival. And I had this moment, record scratch image flashed through my mind of all the school carnivals I've gone through now that I'm at my last remaining child in elementary school of 6 children.
So you gave exactly the same amount that you gave for each and every other child.
Very good. So, of course, all of this morality is tugging at me. Like, I can't show favorites. I should give the same level of effort and engagement to my 6th child as I did to my 1st child. All those things went through my mind. And the number one overriding emotion was just revulsion for the experience of going to an elementary school carnival. It's nauseating. It's poorly organized. It's not fun. It's usually backed up. Their ticketing system, it's just a glorified fundraiser, and it just turns into chaos.
So I'm going to put this burden back on you. The reason it's poorly organized, the reason that it's got these bad logistical things, is because they didn't have stalwart, hardcore, well thought out organizers and volunteers, Ben. If you wanted to make it better, you had every opportunity, and you decided to do nothing and just show up.
You know what? You're doing that devil's advocate thing amazingly well, and screw you very much. So here's my dilemma: is I can either, I don't know, just part of reaching out to my friends on Facebook was about getting a pep talk. And some of them commiserated, which I appreciated a little bit, but really I just need to go, come on, man, you can do this just one last time. Go to the school carnival, suffer through it, and let your last kid have a good time.
You should have gone to the last school carnival as like a celebration. Like you should have been in a Hawaiian shirt with like the flowers and like a beverage of your choice in hand. I look
like an insane man compared to like the parents with an only child.
You should have been cheering. Like whatever, all the little like skits and stuff that the little kids do, just like clapping your head off and like, what's going on? It's like, oh, this is number 6 and I'm done.
Yes, last school carnival, woo!
Last hurrah!
Yeah, it's like those memes printed of parents sending, first day of school where the kids are like moping off and the parents are cheering. Yeah, I get it. So here's what I decided. I'm like, okay, she hasn't asked me yet about it. I'm not going to bring it up. I got the email from the school. She's getting the pep talk about it every day.
I am already shaking my head, listeners. This. All right, go ahead, Ben. I'll let you finish your course of action.
If she comes to me and says, Dad, I want to go to the school carnival, I'll do it. I'll smile. I'll say, okay, sweetheart, and I'll get my coat and I'll take her to school carnival. If she doesn't bring it up, I'll consider it an Abraham moment, which is a name I have for a situation. It's an Old Testament story where Abraham was commanded by God to sacrifice his only son. He took him up on the mountain. He put him on the altar. He got the knife.
I'm aware of the Abraham story.
Okay, well, let me retell it anyway. And he raised his hand to stab his child, and then the angel came and stopped him. He didn't actually have to do it. Now, I have these moments in my life, and I call them Abraham moments, where I fully intend to do something good. I proceed as if I'm going to, and then when I don't have to, I'm relieved, and I call it an Abraham moment. So I'm waiting for an Abraham moment with the school carnival here. If my daughter doesn't come and ask, and the date passes, and we don't go to the school carnival, I'll put down the knife and be glad. But if I have to, I'll go to the school carnival.
So I identify these moments kind of the same way, but I call them duty-desire conflicts. Okay,
all right.
Because there's a conflict going on where this is why you feel bad about the whole thing, is because you feel that you have a duty to do it, but you desire not to.
Right.
Whenever I identify these conflicts, then I immediately I need to turn off my feelings, and that's analyze this from a pure utility perspective. I don't want to go. So I'm not going to go. That said, like your kids, throw the scales, throw that out the window when it comes to your kids. You're going, period. And look me in the eye and tell me that you don't know guy number 6 is going to tell you 15 minutes before it starts.
Oh, you're so right. That's exactly what's going to happen. Dad, there's a carnival tonight. I need to go.
Tonight, right now.
Yeah.
Cancel all your plans. No, you need to get out ahead of this as a parent. That's your job, man. You got to be the responsible one. That's first of all. Now, second, I'm going to stop being devil's advocate and I'm going to go on your side for a second.
Okay. Because, I need
in a similar fashion, my son's elementary school has got a new social outreach person or something in their office. And I swear to you, I must get 4 or 5 mass automated text messages from the elementary school every day about everything.
What?
All the inane, stupid stuff like, tomorrow's a half day, remember. And we're looking for volunteers to make the teacher's lunch. And then there's going to be the fundraiser next week. And it's just stop.
Roll all that stuff up and send me a weekly email.
that I can delete or set a rule to automatically go to my spam folder. But when we're talking about elementary school fundraisers, I feel like this school is hitting us, the parents, up for money way more than my school did. Maybe I just didn't see it.
Yeah.
Listeners, if you're older,
it's
please.
It's reverse hazing.
Yeah. Chime in, because I feel like I'm getting hit up at least twice a week for money from the school.
Is this an actual socioeconomic outcome of the baby boom generation? When we were kids, we were this numerous generation, and the average number of children per family was 3.6, and now that it's starting approaching 2, maybe the tides have turned and the tables have turned, and there's an actual problem that you're seeing the side effects of.
That would only make sense if the schools were funded per capita instead of just with flat budgets, in which case the flat budget was super high because of the baby boomer generation. So having fewer kids should lead to smaller class sizes with higher per capita funding. That doesn't seem to be what's happening.
Okay.
But that's me. That's the accountant talking.
I give our users a lot of credit, and I don't think there's anyone out there that thinks I don't love my last child. But just as evidence that I do, my wife came to me last night and says, "Your daughter joined the running club. She needs a new pair of running shoes." I said, "Great." And I threw her in the car, and her and I went shoe shopping for about the same amount of time it would take to go to the school carnival. I tried to get her to buy a pair of Nike Air Max 95s. Unfortunately, she wasn't having it.
Grown. Those are not running shoes. Okay, keep going.
But I spent time with my daughter because I love her.
Yeah, but one does not replace the other. That does not absolve you of the responsibility of planning and attending the school carnival. And you know it. Look me in the eye. You know it.
Okay, you're right. You're right. But I'm still not volunteering to help. One of the recurring themes on this podcast, I think that we've talked about at least 3 times, is Sonic the Hedgehog. So the Sonic the Hedgehog movie came out last week. I took 2 of my daughters and went to see it.
Awesome.
And it was fine.
It was
it was a mild diversion. It was forgettable. Jim Carrey returned to fine form as a scenery-chewing bad guy. It genuinely made me laugh several times. I enjoyed the actor that played Sonic, and it was mostly just fluff. If I were to try to evaluate, I think the place it did the worst was in the magic system. And one of those generic plots that was like right out of a Saturday morning cartoon, but other than that, whatever.
That's what Sonic the Hedgehog, like in a world with people, it doesn't make any sense because that's not.
It wasn't The Incredibles. If their goal was just don't screw it up and make a lot of money, they win.
Yeah. You ever hear of the term shovelware?
No.
Okay, this was a term that was coined by the software industry in the late 90s, early 2000s. And this was when video games were being developed just fast enough to coincide with movie releases. And so these developers...
Yes. Oh, man, I remember like Aladdin, the video game or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. Well, these developers would shell out tons of money for the intellectual property rights to actually make a video game with the movie release. But then they wouldn't have any budget left over to make, a game that was playable. And so you had this string of just terrible, ridiculously bad video games. But this went the other way because Sonic the Hedgehog started as a video game, and like there was no clear, good way to translate it to a movie. And so you got Sonic the Hedgehog movie. I haven't seen it yet. I probably will see it at some point, and then we can talk about it then.
All right.
Talk about it for a 4th time.
So that brings us to Bad at English. So I was looking through my repository of 300 or so terms that I'd written down during my time in England, and I noticed one that I thought kind of related to the subject of today's podcast, where you and I are going to do a quiz show. So I found one that the British tended to use that was from a different quiz show. The quiz show that we're going to do today is one called Mastermind. There's another quiz show on BBC called University Challenge, and there's a phrase on it. When you start off a category, they tend to give you an easy question, and they call it a starter for 10. I think that's how many points it's worth in the game show.
Okay.
So the term starter for 10 is kind of used with a degree of ubiquitousness to refer to something that's easy way to just get off on the right foot. So in the US, we might say, "I'll take Wheel of Time for 200, Alex." And the fact that you say 200 means that it would be the top question in a category, which means it's likely to be one of the easiest ones.
Only during round 2, the second round after the commercial break. Otherwise,
of course.
Take Wheel of Time
so,
for 100.
So I'll take Wheel of Time for 100. Yes, exactly. So the British word of the day, Bad at English, starter for 10. So let me try to use it in a sentence. I can't think of one. I should have written one out.
You should have thought of this before. You're usually so well prepared. Now you're on the spot, and now we're talking about how you're on the spot and you can't come up with something. That's just going to make it worse.
That's a good starter for 10. That's our British word of the day.
I love your British words of the day. You have 300 in a book? Like, did you have a separate book with just English phrases that you carried around?
So here's I kept an Excel spreadsheet that I just typed these into at my desk. But what's going to happen at some point, and why it's so long, is occasionally I would stumble in a category where there was a whole bunch of British words about a particular topic that I didn't know about. Let's say, for instance, menstruation, where the ladies near me would be like, "Oh, you like that one? Let me give you another," and they'd run off a list of like 15 words that the British uses as rude slang for menstruation, and I wrote them all down.
Well, you're making me uncomfortable. Why did you have to pick that one? But all right. So you have a bunch of English slang, and like we're not using any of those BT
Right.
dubs.
Right,
Just
right.
so you're aware.
So yeah, maybe I'll run out sooner rather than later.
Man, yeah. Oh crap! I got to cut out the menstruation ones. That's like 3 pages. Jeez.
All the men's and women's sexual organ ones, those are out.
Those, yeah. Mm-hmm. We trying to keep this rated G, man. Like your parents, my parents, they all listen to this.
Yeah, those I were the British are not shy.
That's interesting. Like there's the whole. We're not going to get into British history about how they were so prudish that they kicked people out. But that's for. We'll have another podcast about.
But like we did
history.
discuss on a past episode of Bad at English, they also kind of had the foresight to realize that if they were to censor their language and not allow it to blossom and develop, that it would restrict one of the greatest things about the English language, and that is that all comers may apply.
So you phrase that and couch it in such a way that it sounds like an obvious decision, like from intellectual on high. It's like, of course we must let the language develop and evolve. That's the only logical thing to do. At the same time, people are still having that same argument today with American English and emojis and acronyms and like the kind of slang that we're hearing in the top 40 like hip hop songs.
Sure. And it seems like we're stodgy about it until you look at another language that truly is, like French, where they have a committee that makes all decisions relating to the language, and they don't morph, and they don't change, and they don't adopt new terms. Like every menu item at McDonald's has an officially approved term by the French language committee. There's no such thing as a Big Mac in France.
That's awesome. That was one of my favorite parts of the book 1984. Where they were deconstructing the language. It's double plus good.
Well, speaking of British culture, a long time ago, my mind was fascinated by the idea of going on a quiz show where you got to choose in advance what the topic you were going to be quizzed on was. And I mentioned this to you a year ago when we were in Vegas, maybe even before that, and I'd asked you what you want the topic would be, and you've been very consistent. And so today, welcome to the Bad at Magic Mastermind edition, where you and I will be conducting a quiz show where we will quiz each other on the topics of our choice. So
okay.
You go ahead and tell what your topic you chose was.
So before we even get into like the mechanics of what is going to happen, we just need to have a frank discussion about our preparedness, because this is one of the few times where you and I had to prepare in a vacuum, because whatever feedback we would give each other would give us clues and insight into the quizzes or the questions that we were going to get. And so, like, I'm a little worried that it's going to be asymmetrical. Like, I'm a little worried that I'm going to ask you stuff that, like, any, like, 8-year-old Sunday school kid is going to be able to answer. And at the same time, you're going to be coming at me with, like, proper nouns and specific dates in this chapter of, like, the 9th book or something. So, or vice versa. Who knows?
So I guess you're right. I guess there's... Is that such a disaster, though, if it comes out like that and it's kind of asymmetrical? Is this just a dumpster fire of a Bad at Magic episode, or are we just proving that we're bad at magic?
It's a disaster if the asymmetry goes against me. No, if the asymmetry goes against me and you answer all your questions and I don't, like, I'm going to look like a chump, and I don't know if my ego can handle that.
So you texted me about this, and let me see. Here's what I wrote. You were like, okay, I'm not really sure. You're kind of feeling me out on this without trying to reveal any of what we were doing. And I said, I'm trying to ask questions that are challenging but not too hard, interesting but not too complex, succinct but not too short, and that will still be accessible to non-readers of the book series.
So all of those fancy government buzzwords just mean you're going to ask me questions. That's what that boiled down to.
There's only one way to find out, since we haven't seen each other's question lists.
And we transition right into the mechanics of how this is going to work.
So,
nice segue. Go ahead.
Let's establish some ground rules. But before we start, I got to tell you, my wife has read the entire series, so I had her help me make the questions. Like, you didn't have the benefit of having a Mormon in the room. I don't know if you could have asked your sister-in-law or something, but...
That is another thing that I wanted to bring up, because I found myself researching topics for questions to ask you, and I realized, like, I had to stop halfway through, and I'm like, Ben just totally tricked me into reading, like, half of the Book of Mormon.
Okay, Alicia did know about this, but I had to do a lot of reading myself. Like you had asked me to read some of these books, and I'd read like 2 or 3 of them, and I burned out and stopped. But I didn't hate them. Anyway, so you have chosen the Wheel of Time epic fantasy series by Robert Jordan, and I have chosen Doctrines of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yes.
So we've each prepared 20 questions. Oh, what I was going to say is, as Alicia was helping me prepare the questions, she was on the wiki that we were looking at. It's like a Robert Jordan wiki. It has like 6,000 articles on it or something like that. And she goes, have you looked at this list of trending articles? She's like, I think we're the ones making these articles trend.
That's pretty
And
funny.
I looked at it. It was true. It was her and I were making the wiki trend.
So you're saying is that wiki article had been dead for a long time.
Yeah, but her and I just like doing the research for this was bringing articles to the top of the pile.
That's really cool. On the flip side of that, if I start getting banner ads in all of my browsers for LDS functions, like I'm coming at you, bro.
Okay, here's the real litmus test. If the missionaries knock on your door.
Oh, if I'm waiting for that day.
Come on,
like,
be nice to
know
him.
How
my son is one of those missionaries right now.
I will be so nice to them that they will think that I'm going to lock them in the basement and peel their skin off. Like that's my goal.
You don't have a basement.
Did I? No, I think I've told the story about the only other Mormon missionaries that I interacted with in a church setting. So we'll talk about that. We got to get on with the
Okay.
with the game
So
show.
here's the rules. So we got 20 questions. We'll do alternating 5 apiece. Most points at the end wins. Now, if you don't know anything about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and you haven't read the book yet, spoiler alert, you're going to find out some stuff. Same as Wheel of Time series. There's going to be some spoilers.
So if you haven't read the Book of Mormon yet and you don't want spoilers, go read the book first and then come back and listen to the podcast.
That's right. Well said, Josh. I couldn't have said it better myself. Okay. What I suggest you and I do, so that I don't have to edit it in, is we'll pause after the question has been asked, even if we know the answer, just to give the listeners a chance to participate.
I think you should edit in like a cool little sound, like a Jeopardy music between every single question, because then this podcast might come out 3 weeks from now.
I kind of want to, but just give it a 3 count, would you?
No problem.
Even if you know the answer.
Okay.
Okay. So here we go. Who's going first? Should we rock, paper, scissors?
Of course we got to rock, paper, scissors.
This is the Bad Magic Podcast.
Sir, it is rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Okay.
Okay? You throw on the shoot.
Okay.
All right.
Rock, paper,
scissors, shoot.
Can you see mine?
Rock.
Oh, and I threw scissors. Okay. So you get to choose.
So I'm going to ask you questions first.
Okay.
All right. Let me pull up my... All right. So I have a smattering of questions. I pulled from a lot of different sources. I have a lot of different kinds of questions because I didn't want to just have a bunch of of a specific kind of question in case you're really bad at it. And I also have sources cited for all of my answers. So if they're wrong, I have the source and I'm just going to send it to you in an email because I'm not going to argue with you about it.
Same.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yep, do it.
I have no idea if these are hard or easy because I know almost nothing about the doctrine of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but here we go. This one is actually kind of multiple choice. Which one of the following people was not one of Lehi's sons? Jacob, Joseph, Sam, or Jerem?
Okay, I'm giving our listeners a chance to answer. The answer is Jerem.
Nice. The answer is Jerem.
Yeah, ones like that don't need to be multiple choice. You could ask me to name Lehi's sons, and I can name all of Lehi's sons.
Oof. Well, I will do that then.
Okay.
I will adjust my questions. All right, you ready for the next one? I was born of goodly parents. My father was a prophet. I was commanded to build a boat and was laughed at by my brothers. Who am I?
Sorry. I'll give our listeners a chance to answer.
You're chastising me, and you're the one that's going to stop.
The answer is Nephi.
Nephi. That is correct. We should have like a sound effect. A ding, ding, ding. Okay. And this one's multiple choice, but I'm not going to give you the choices.
Okay.
Mr. I needed to be harder. I was the Lamanish woman who called the people when the spirit overcame Ammon and the king's household.
I believe her name was Abish.
Her name was Abish. Wow. All right, now I'm worried that I did not get all these questions. Ben was not kidding. Okay, question number 4. These are not hard enough. In addition to the gold plates, what else did Joseph Smith claim to see hidden in the stone box?
Ooh. Okay, we'll give our listeners a second. In addition to the golden plates, there was the breastplate of Laban, the sword of Laban, and the Leahona. Maybe.
Okay, so...
Yeah, okay, that's my answer.
Okay.
A sword, a breastplate, and a ball of curious workmanship.
The answer that I found, whether this is correct or not, like I'll let you dispute, is a breastplate, the Urim, and the Thummim.
No, you got me there. I don't get the points for this one. I should have said Urim and Thummim.
Okay. Those were mystical artifacts that allowed him to translate the plates.
Yes.
Is what I gathered from my reading. Okay.
So that was my first miss question.
Ooh, nice. I thought that was going to be too easy. Okay. Question number 5, last question for the first round. How old was Mormon when he took charge of the Neophyte armies?
15.
He was in his 16th year, sir, when he took over the Neophyte armies.
That means he's 15.
In his 16th year?
Yeah, that's just fancy English for 15.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Is that fancy British English?
No,
it's like, I don't know British English.
In his 16th year means...
Oh, he wasn't 16 years old yet. It was his... there's some exclusive math question here, but I'll give it to you. That's a gray area.
Okay,
you're right.
I'm 4 for 5 this round. Okay, all right. So transitioning out of Book of Mormon and early church history of the Mormon Church.
I'm legitimately nervous over here about this because I have no idea where you're coming from.
So mine are grouped. So these first 5 are kind of like about the books and the author more than the content.
I will probably fail these questions.
Well,
please go ahead.
Here you go. Robert Jordan, writer of the epic fantasy The Wheel of Time, wrote the series under a pseudonym. What was his real name?
Oh, fail and half. I have no idea. Not a clue.
Okay, his name was James Oliver Rigney Jr. And he also wrote under 2 other pseudonyms in different genres. He wrote westerns and like mysteries or something like that. Okay, question 2.
Oh, I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna fail this whole first round. All right, let's go.
How many books did Robert Jordan originally intend to have in the series before he died of a rare heart disease in 2007 at the age of 58?
Pausing for effect.
Mm-hmm.
He originally, it's either 10 or 11. I'm going to go with 11.
I'm sorry, the answer was 12. He died after publishing the 11th book, and that's if you don't count the prequel.
We don't count the prequel, and the idea, after he died, and Brandon Sanderson took over, like he had all half of the manuscript and the notes that he needed to complete what Robert Jordan thought was going to be the last book, which actually broke out into 3 of the longest books of the series.
So you're answering the next question.
Oh, damn it.
Question 3. Brandon Sanderson was chosen to finish the final book of The Wheel of Time and was given access to all of Jordan's notes for writing the final book by the series editor. Who was that person?
3, 2, 1. The series editor was Robert Jordan's wife. I do not have her name at the time. I don't have her name off the top of my head, but
her name is
wife.
Harriet Rigney, of course, since his real name was James Oliver Rigney.
Woohoo!
Yes.
I'm
giving you that one.
Getting a little better. Thank you.
Okay. Question 4. What did Sanderson actually end up doing instead of writing the final book?
That was the pause. I wasn't thinking or flabbergasted for a second. That was the pause for other people to answer. No, he broke the last book into 3 books. He even said in an interview that the manuscript and the notes that Robert Jordan had it was super long. There was a lot that needed to be tied up, and it had good 3 clear breaking transition points that he broke into 3 books.
That's the part that's weird to me, because when I started reading about this and found out that that Jordan, intended to basically conclude the series on a 12th book, that what you just said doesn't jive with the fact that, when Sanderson took over to write that 12th book, he had enough to write 3 more books.
This is actually one of the, if you start reading about, if you read the books, first of all, multiple times, the first time through, it's a roller coaster and it's great. But like the second, third, and fourth readings, you realize that, and a lot of people will complain about in forums and online, that there is a lot of plot inertia in the later books. Like really they point at like books 8, 9, and 10, where, I mean, like the books are still good, but not a lot really changes or happens. Like the plot doesn't progress a whole lot in those books. And this is why when they turned over the books to Brandon Sanderson, like one of the things that was really difficult for him, in my opinion, was he had all of these loose ends that he needed to tie up succinctly, but in a satisfying way. And I think he nailed it.
Okay. And another thing that I realized is when I looked at the relative length of the books, they kind of average around 300,000 words. And Sanderson wrote 3 additional books of 300,000 words each. So, there was a lot of material left.
There was a lot. And I'll tell you, like anybody that's read the series, you ask them, like the last 3 books, they go at like a breakneck pace to try to get everything finished up.
Yeah, Alicia mentioned that. She says, when Sanderson took over, the first thing he did was kind of do away with the inertia you were talking about, where he just tied up some loose ends, closed some plot threads, and moved things along.
There was a couple of really major plot threads that he tied up in the first book that he wrote in the prologue.
Yeah.
Like just, you know what? We're done with this whole plot. It is over. But it was still satisfying. It's just done and over.
All right, question 5. Not counting New Spring, the prequel, can you name the shortest and or longest books in the series by word count? So I'll give you points if you can pick either one out.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. I believe that the longest book by word count is the last book, A Memory of Light. The shortest book, I'm going to go with A Path of Daggers.
All right, you get full points because you got the shortest. The longest is Lord of Chaos at a staggering 389,000 words. 38% longer than Path of Daggers.
Nice. Well, I got one of them, and I had 2 chances.
So,
I think you went easy on me there, but that's okay.
At the end of round 1, the score is 4 for me and 3 for you.
Well, now that we're actually going to talk about the book the books in the next set of questions, maybe I'll do better.
All right.
Jerk.
So give me my next bank of 5.
Should I increase the difficulty of this one? No, I'm not going to. All right, so question number 6 for Ben about Latter-day Saints doctrine. How many books are in the Book of Mormon?
Oh, boy. How long do I have to answer?
You can count them up. We're not on any time crunch here. It's going to get boring for the listeners. I'll have to regale them with tales of daring do while you sit and count on your fingers. I'm watching him through the webcam, listeners, and he is literally like mumbling to himself and like putting up fingers as he's naming the books in his head.
Okay, I'm feeling the pressure of the time and stuff, but I'm going to say 16.
There are 15 books in the Book of Mormon. Oh.
Okay.
And no, it was not in its 16th book. This is legitimately only 15 books.
All right, so I missed that one.
You missed that one. All right. This one I almost took out because I thought it was going to be too hard, so let's see what it is. This silver coin was worth 4 centims. And for our listeners, I have absolutely no idea the context of this question.
Okay, but I think I know it.
Okay.
It's a 4 centims. Is it ephah? EPHAH?
No, the answer is Ezrom.
Ezrom.
All right. So apparently the money was based on a 1, 2, 4, 7 system.
These are the right kind of questions. Don't feel bad about these. Keep going. I should have gotten 15. The time pressure got to me.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, time pressure gets to me too sometimes. You can ask people about that. All right, moving on. Who was the grandson of King Zeniff, who also became king of his people?
Ooh, I don't know this one, so I'm going to give a wild guess that's probably a pretty good educated guess and say Pahoran.
I have no idea how good that guess is, but the answer is Limhi. Limhi? Limhi. It's in Mosaic 11:1 if you want to look it up later.
No, I'm sure you're right. I'm 0 for 3 this round. Keep going.
Sorry.
It's all right. I should have gotten the number of books in the Book of Mormon.
I shouldn't feel bad either. This is Mastermind, and you called your own.
Yeah, I did.
You named you called the weapon you wanted to be killed with. So here it goes. Who wrote The Title of Liberty?
That one. I know that one. I'm pausing for effect. That was Captain Moroni.
It was Captain Moroni. Solid. Ding ding. So there's was that 2 for you this round?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. I've only gotten 1 this round.
Only 1. Oof. Okay. This one is another one of those word questions. We were not bound under the same oath as our fathers. We entered the army under the command of Helaman. Helaman considered us his sons. Which people am I describing?
They are known in the Book of Mormon as the Stripling Warriors.
That is correct, sir. Bonus points if you can say how many there were.
There were 2,000, and later
there were 2,000.
Added another few to their numbers.
Nice. Good, solid round 2. I guess the difficulty cranked up.
So I got 2 that round, so I got 6 after 10 questions.
That's pretty good.
All right.
Let's see if I can come back.
So I'm transitioning now to asking you about characters in the book.
Thank you.
Question 6.
Good.
I'm going to read you a quote. You tell me which character's thoughts are being narrated. Quote, "Men always seemed to think violence could solve anything. If she had a stout stick, she would have thumped all 3 of them about the shoulders until they saw reason."
One of my favorite characters. I'm going to pause for effect. Pause for effect. 3, 2, 1. This is one of my favorite characters for being consistently inconsistent and hypocritical throughout the entire series, and that is Nynaeve Elmira.
You got it.
So one of my other favorite quote from her is, "I won't shout at you," shouted Nynaeve. She's like that through the whole series.
Men think violence can solve anything. If she had a stick, she would have beaten them for it.
Love it to death. All right, that's 1 for me.
Question 7. How many evil wielders of the one power known as the Forsaken were originally imprisoned in Shavel Ghul by the Creator?
It's Shael Ghul.
Whoops.
That's fine. No, it's a pronunciation thing. And I only know that because I listen to the audiobooks. Okay, there were 13 Forsaken.
Dang it. Why couldn't you get it wrong by 1 and we can be even?
No, if you asked me to name them, I'd be a little more hard pressed. But there are 13.
Ooh, I'm not going hard enough on you then. If you think you could name all 13 of the Forsaken, jeez.
Well, they're the major antagonists in the whole books. But that's fine.
But they're these like arcane, cryptic names. Okay, question 8. Which of the 3 boys from Emond's Field has the allegiance of a group of soldiers known as the Band of the Red Hand?
Wait, say the question again?
Which of the 3 boys from Emond's Field has the allegiance of a group of soldiers known as the Band of the Red Hand, who are so loyal to him they would follow him into the pit of doom?
And they would too. Pause for effect. 3, 2, 1. We are talking about Matrim Cawthon.
Yes.
Later to be known as Prince of the Ravens. What does she name him? He's got another name that he gets later on that is only referenced a couple times.
You might be answering a future question.
I'll stop there.
Question 9. Which character, formerly known as Ellen Morin Tedronai, is believed to be the most powerful of the Forsaken and their de facto leader during the War of Power?
Pause for effect. 3, 2, 1. I'm going to go with Ishamael, later known as Moradin.
Nailed it. And question
Boom.
10. Which character believed to be the fabled dragon reborn can be plainly identified by the brands of large waterfowl in the palms of his hands?
You're asking me which character is the main character of the books?
Oh, Josh, maybe there's other readers of the books here that are feeling good about themselves right now because they knew the answer to this question. Just like if there was a Mormon listening to this and they heard you ask who Nephi was like, pfft.
With this guy. Fair enough. All right, you know what? Fair enough. No, you are talking about the main protagonist of the entire series, Rand al'Thor, or Lews Therin Telamon, depending on your perspective.
All right, so after 10 questions, you stand at 8 correct, and I have 6.
Woo! You see, now you ask questions about inside the books. I read in the books. I have not read much around the books, apparently.
Yeah, well, I found that stuff to be interesting as well.
Yeah, I should do more research into that if I wasn't just so into the fiction. Okay. So, moving on to our next set of questions. Now, this is where I'm going to transition.
Good.
I am actually transitioning out of the Book of Mormon for a minute, and we are transitioning into church doctrine. These questions all have dates for answers.
Oh, geez.
Okay. Are you ready?
Go for it.
Okay. Question 11. When was the first printed copy of the Book of Mormon produced?
Oh, boy. I know the decade.
I'll let you get away with the year.
Yeah. I am going to say 1826.
So there is a 26 in the answer, but yours is incorrect. It is March 26th, 1830.
1830
was when the first printed copies were made available.
Okay.
Question number 12. When was Brigham Young sustained as president of the church?
Oh, okay. I'm going to say 1854.
December 27th, 1847.
Whew.
So are these too hard? Now I feel like, you see, this is the asymmetry that I was
They
worried
kind of
about.
are.
Now I feel
okay,
like
so I'm not telling you my thought process out loud, but here's the things I know. Like, I'm telling myself this story. Like, okay, Joseph Smith received the golden plates and started translating them about 1824, and I knew it was just a couple of years after that, so I'm guessing 1826, when it was actually 1830. Brigham Young became the next prophet of the church after Joseph Smith was martyred in 1844, but I know it didn't happen right away, and I thought it happened about a decade after, so I guessed 1854, which is 10 years later. So I'm not super far off.
You're not far off at all. And I'm not ragging on you for your knowledge. I'm not. This is the asymmetry I was worried about, because now I feel like I'm just beating up on you.
Nah.
Like, oh, you're gonna challenge me to a quiz off, sir?
Go ahead, next question.
Let me go to the website and start pulling down stuff that I think might be important. Okay. Question 13. I'm sorry, Ben. When was the practice of plural marriage ended by the church?
Okay. Now, these are the kind of questions, like, I know super easy where to look up, but I don't generally know the answer. I think, and to my embarrassment, I taught church history in seminary last year, and this is one of the lessons I taught. I just don't memorize dates. I think it was 1890.
That is correct. It was October 6th of 1890.
Yeah.
Nice. These are admittedly very hard, but at the same time, I knew that
you picked a question about plural marriage because there's a crossover to your book series.
Oh, excellent, wonderful, big fan. All right, so I did not. I try not to pick these dates out of a vacuum. I try to pick very important dates because there were some very inconsequential dates listed on the website.
Those are important dates.
Okay. In my defense, I'm not trying to beat you up, Ben. All right, 14. When was the priesthood eligibility expanded to, quote, every worthy male member, regardless of race or color, end quote?
I believe that was...
Wait, pause for effect.
Okay. I believe that was 1976.
It was 1978. September 30th, to be exact.
Okay.
Made famous by the musical Book of Mormon. And I believe that in 1978 God changed his mind about black people.
You knew that date from watching the Matt Parker.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Okay.
Now, sorry. Like, factually correct, but just very funny.
Okay.
This one is a little... I don't know if this one's good. If you're going to get this one. What year did church membership reach 10 million?
That's been in my lifetime. I think it was
You're
in the
super
early
old.
90s, so I'm going to say 1990.
It was 1997.
Wow.
And I'm sorry for making these questions too hard. Now, to In my defense, those are the only questions about dates. After that, we transitioned to questions that I just picked out of the air that I thought were interesting.
So we did 5 that round, and I only got 1?
Yes, sir.
Dang. All right, so that brings my total to 7 for 15. Okay.
Yeah, I could just go to the bathroom for this round and still be in the lead. Well, that's my fault. I'm picking questions that are too hard.
And I tried to make some of these hard for you, but I know that like this next one's going to be easy. So question 11. Which character was leveled up in their ability to access the one power, Deadpool style, through a sadistic technique called forcing?
Pause for effect. This was Egwene Alvear, later to be the Amerlin seat.
That is correct. Question 12. Over the course of this story, Randolph Thor develops romantic relationships with 3 different women. I'm going to give you the hard version of this question since you're so far ahead.
Name all 3?
Name all 3 and where they are from.
And where they're from. Okay. Pause for effect. Pause for effect. All right, so we've got 3. Let's name them in the order that he met them. The first person he met in book 1 was Min Farshaw. She was from Baerlon in Andor. The second person he met was Elaine Tricand, who was the daughter heir of Caemlyn. Caemlyn in Andor. And the third was, what's her last name?
She doesn't have one.
She doesn't have one, right? So it's Avienda of the Tardod. Oh no, the 9 Valleys Sept of the Tardod Aiel. That's who it is.
Yeah. Full marks. And I'm looking at the rest of my questions and I'm like, I did not make this hard enough. All right, question 13. Oh, wait. What was his solution to the fact that he fell in love with 3 different women?
It wasn't really his solution. He, throughout the books, was trying to push them away to keep them safe because he thought he was destined to die. Spoiler alert, everybody. But really, those 3 agreed amongst each other that they were all going to enter into like a plural, like a, what do they call that? Like, not an open relationship, but like a multiple. Like, they were all going to share him, and the 3 women were okay with it. And he was actually the last person to find out that. And so they just kind of tag teamed him throughout the book.
Wow. Okay. So, plural marriage in both of our quizzes.
Not just that, but like Elaine gets knocked up with twins. Avienda's going to have quadruplets. Like, it's crazy. Anyway, please continue.
Question 13. And I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but Moraine Domadred was once...
That's actually pretty good.
...was once thrown into a pond by a man she suspected to be a dark friend and had attempted to sneak up on. What was that man's name, and what did his relationship to Moraine become?
Pausing for effect. So they mention that in the main book series, and they actually describe the scene in the prequel, The New Spring, and that is Lan Mandragoran, who was the uncrowned king of Malkir, later to become her warder for many, many years.
Correct. Question 14. When Perrin Ibera becomes a wolf brother, he's given a new name by the wolf pack. What is that name?
Pausing for effect. So, Perrin is one of my favorite characters, again. He's one of the main characters, so he's probably everybody's favorite. But his ability to talk to wolves, and wolves don't talk like we do, so they don't recognize human names. They have names that are big and elaborate. The name they give him is Young Bull, and it's kind of a joke, like when they give it to him. But they call him Young Bull.
And question 15. Time being represented by a giant 7-spoked wheel, the turning of this wheel and the events of each age generate the Great Pattern, a predefined plan which defines the past, present, and future. Which of the 7 ages are the events of the book series set in?
Wow. Oh man, Ben. Like, this is literally in the first paragraph of the first chapter of every one of the books.
Oh, is it? See,
yeah.
That's the kind of thing I don't know because I haven't read them.
Because you haven't read the books, right? But like, if you had read the first page of book 1, you would know that all the books open with, as the wheel of time turns, ages come and pass. And stories in this age become the legends, and there's a whole thing.
Okay.
In one age called the Third Age by some.
Great, you got it. Okay, so you missed the first 2 questions and you haven't missed 1 cent. So you are 13 for 15. Go ahead and we'll do the last set, and you can put me out of my misery.
Oh, geez, Ben, I'm so sorry. Like, I legitimately feel bad.
Are these bad questions I'm asking you? Like, I didn't realize they were going to be so elementary.
Yeah, they're pretty elementary. Like, honestly, I was worried you were going to be asking about, like, tertiary or,
No,
like,
I didn't
really
want to
small
do that.
characters.
I didn't want to ask questions that were like, pick some obscure character that you might not remember.
You probably should have gone a little harder because I have a very good memory. I've read these books like 5 times, and you're asking questions about the main characters.
All right.
Sorry. Not to mention, like, that, like the last one, like, they literally mention that in every book. All right, sorry. Moving on. So these are the last 5 questions. These are questions that I pulled, like, I spent way too long on the LDS website, which makes available all this information. And shame on you for tricking me into researching so hard about LDS doctrine.
This was not
not a research project, not an underhanded attempt to get me to convert. I understand. I know. I'm making a joke. Like, listeners, legitimately, Ben and I have been doing this little dance back and forth for decades now. Like, he knows, I know, we're good. Okay, question 16. This is probably my favorite question. What are the pieces of the whole armor?
Ooh. Okay, so this is out of the New Testament, so we aren't the only ones that that believe in the whole armor of God. So Paul talks about the whole armor of God, which is having your on your head the helm of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, your loins girt about with truth, your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace, and carrying with you the sword of truth, which is the Spirit of God.
That, I mean, full marks, because you got one that I didn't have listed, but I remember reading it, not thinking it was real, and the only one you missed that's not on my list is the shield of faith.
Shield of faith. Dang, I missed one.
No, you're totally fine because you named one that I didn't list. To quench all the fiery
darts of the adversary.
Wow. Yeah, you almost quoted that whole section. So yeah, full points. You're good.
Okay.
Okay. By what method are priests and teachers ordained?
Okay, so priests and teachers are ordained by the laying on of hands.
That is correct. I guess that was probably too easy. Okay. This one, I'm not trying to be snarky. Like, this is how I read this whole section, and this is the best way that I figured to phrase this question. Why did the miracles stop?
I'm trying to imagine where you found this, like what context it came in. What I think it may have been in is in context to something that's prophesied in the New Testament called the apostasy. And that is when Christ was on the earth, he set up his church and an organization, and along with that church was the priesthood, and along with that priesthood was the ability to conduct miracles by God's power in his name. But the church fell apart, the priesthood was lost, and with it the ability to conduct miracles in God's name. So that's my answer, the apostasy.
The apostasy is your answer.
Yep.
All right, well, I'm going to have you interpret my answer because I have a direct quote from Mormon 9:20 that says, "And the reason why he ceaseth to do miracles among the children of men is because that they dwindle in unbelief and depart from the right way and know not the God in whom they should trust."
Yeah. Or, yes, that's another way to describe apostasy.
I'm going to take your word for it, and there you go. Okay. Number 19. Also, again, I'm pulling these questions because I thought they were interesting to me. What are LDS members commanded to be?
That's kind of a vague question. I don't know how to answer it.
It is. I pulled a direct quote from 3 Nephi, if that helps.
From 3 Nephi, give me the full reference.
3 Nephi. The full reference? 3 Nephi 12:48.
Perfect.
He got it. Quote, "Therefore I would that ye should be perfect, even as I or your Father who is in heaven is perfect."
Yeah, and that's Christ speaking.
I liked it. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
That's pretty narcissistic, Christ.
That's like, what he says. Be like me.
I'm perfect, and you should be too. That sounds like a snake oil salesman selling books.
Or the savior of the world.
Details. Semantics. All right, here we go. Question number 20. This is possibly the hardest or the easiest question, depending on your perspective.
Wow.
And, yeah, are you prepared? Like, this is a serious question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why? Silence. So obviously, listeners, there is no correct or incorrect answer to this question.
Wow, you really caught me off guard with this one.
I'm giving Ben a podium and a soapbox.
Okay.
Let's see what he does with it.
Okay, well, so here's where I think our two quizzes are intertwined. At the heart of the Wheel of Time is this idea that there is some greater power that has a plan for all of the people, and that it follows a pattern that was set out before the people came. And I don't think that story that gets told in the Wheel of Time and in the Matrix trilogy and in, the man with the hero with 1,000 faces gets retold so many times just because it's appealing to the human DNA. I think that it transcends humanity because we have a creator.
That's good. I like that. So. Judges score. I'm seeing, okay, we got 2 out of 3, so we're going to give you that one.
All right. All right, well, let's put me out of my misery here. Oh, you'd asked about transmitting the priesthood. I think it's timely that you asked that because my second son's preparing to serve his full-time mission in South America. He leaves in about 5 weeks, and he just received the priesthood that he'll need to go on that, and I gave it to him by the laying on of hands. And I have a piece of paper that documents my priesthood line of authority to give that to him, since we believe in giving the priesthood by the laying on of hands. So I can trace my priesthood authority back in 14 steps to Christ himself. I can name every person on the list to Jesus Christ, and then I transmitted that authority to my son. And so his line of authority is just mine plus 1.
The N+1 iteration. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That should have been question 20. Name the 14 people back to Christ that gave you your authority as a priest. But we're not going to do that right now.
Okay, so question 16 for you. The children of light are so zealous in their search to root out dark friends that they are indiscriminate in their accusations of allegiance to the Dark One. What event do these white cloaks blame on the Aes Sedai that is the source of the tension between the two groups?
Pausing for effect. 3, 2, 1. So the Children of Light rightly blame the breaking of the world on the Aes Sedai, even though technically it was only the male Aes Sedai that did it all. But they still blame the female Aes Sedai, which are all the Aes Sedai now are female in the present of the books.
That's correct. Question 17. In order to become an Aes Sedai and gain access to one power, you must make the 3 oaths using the Oath Rod. What is the unintended consequence of using the Oath Rod?
Now, you see, this is a good question. It's a major plot point for the later books, but it is still a good question. A little more nuanced, a little more detailed. So, the Oath Rod, basically, when you channel the one power into it and then swear an oath on the Oath Rod, it binds you to that oath, which makes it like into your bones. Like, you cannot break your word, whatever you swore on the Oath Rod. The Aes Sedai famously swear 3 oaths on the Oath Rod, and as a consequence, they get this ageless face, like you can't tell how old or young that they are, but it also like halves their lifespan.
That is the answer.
Can I go into depth on that? Because it's awesome.
Yeah, because I was reading into this and I found out there's also another consequence of it because they thought they just wanted to say what the 3 oaths are.
So the 3 oaths are that the Aes Sedai will never speak a word that is not true, so they cannot outright lie. They will never create a weapon for one man to kill another. So they won't, like, they could imbue the one power into weapons and make them amazing, but they don't.
Or they could use weapons that someone else made.
Okay. And then the third one is that they will not use the one power as a weapon, except in defense of their life against dark friends, shadow spawn, or in the defense of their warder, or other sisters.
Were you reading that from somewhere?
No. Why?
Well, that's probably how I sounded when I was reciting the armor of God.
All right, so there you go. What I find fascinating about this is if you read into the context of some of the books, all the Forsaken were alive in the Age of Legends when all this crap was made, and the Aes Sedai currently have no idea what any of this was actually originally for. And it sounds like the Oath Rod that they hold in such high esteem was actually a punishment that they made criminals swear that they would never do the thing that they did again on the Oath Rods.
Like Jim Carrey on Liar Liar.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you convicted a murderer or a thief, and you're like, all right, well, this is the third time we caught you. You get to swear on the oath rod. It cuts your life in half, and we can guarantee that you will never steal again.
Wow. One thing I found fascinating about it is this idea that what they were doing is kind of the source of their power also was such a negative thing, not just that it cut their life in half, but that it's useful to be able to make weapons and lie.
Well, and I want to point this out, that the oath rod didn't actually give them their power. The oath rod was a rite of passage to have the title of Aes Sedai. There were other people, lots of other people in the books that could channel the one power that did not have swear in the oath rod. And that's why we have some of the male channelers created weapons later in the series. We had Aiel Wilders that were doing random things. All right, so sorry, I'm getting too into the weeds.
All right, cool stuff there. I'm glad I stumbled into an interesting area. Question 18. Which of the 14 nations of the Westlands has a marriage custom which allows for an instant marriage if both parties describe each other as their spouse in front of witnesses?
Nice. I like this question. 3, 2, 1. So this is the Shan-Chan, which is actually one of the nations that's on the far side of the ocean that they came back to invade, but they're not really invading. They're coming home. It doesn't matter. So it's the Shan-Chan, and for nobility, one of their customs is that since the two nobles might be separated by hundreds of miles, then as long as one of them says 3 times before witnesses, this person is my spouse. Like, he is my husband, he is my husband, he is my husband. Boom. The other person has a year and a day to say the same thing about the other person in front of witnesses. Doesn't even have to be the same witnesses. If they say, she is my wife, she is my wife, she is my wife, 3 times, they're legally married.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of fun, so I included that.
It's a major plot point for a relationship in the book, which is, it creates this great tension, which is crazy.
But it isn't one-sided. They both have to do it.
They both have to do it. And this is what the tension is. Like, spoilers, everybody. One of the characters says it unwittingly, doesn't realize what he's saying, and says it 3 times. And then, on like a book and a half later, you find out what the custom actually is. And now he's got kind of this axe hanging over his head that if the woman says it again, then he's married. Boom, done.
You mean it doesn't have to be all at once? Like if you just say it 3 times in front of witnesses at some point in your life?
No, well, so you have to say it like 3 times in a row, right now in front of witnesses, and then the other party has a year and a day to reciprocate.
Okay. I like the idea better than just at any point in your life, because there was we used to play like house as kids and be like, "You're my wife." Yeah. That makes me wonder if I have like a secret wife out there somewhere that I don't know I'm married to.
You've got servants following you around, sir. That's 2.
All right, question 19. Following the schism, the Aes Sedai were divided into 7 Aja named after their colors. Which Aja is known for devoting themselves to questions of philosophy and truth? 3, 2, 1. So the white Aja is all about logic and truth. Let's see. There's the blue Aja, which is they go after causes. Am I spoiling? No. Go ahead and show off and see if you can name all 7/8.
Okay, there's white, blue, 7/8. Oh, 8. Red, which their whole objective is to track down male channelers, which would go crazy and die. Later on to change, but that doesn't matter. Green, which is the battle Aja, to stand ready for the last battle. There's the brown, which wants to preserve history and knowledge. There is the gray, which are diplomats. They're all about trying to resolve conflict peacefully. And there is, what did I say?
Yellow.
Gray? White? Thank you. Yellow, all about healing. They're all about trying to heal the wounds and sicknesses in the world. And then there's the alleged 8th Aja, which is the black Aja.
Yes, the Dimir Guild.
The Dimir Guild. Yes, these are the people, the Aes Sedai, that are secretly also Dark Friends working for the other side, but they live their lives as Aes Sedai trying to blend in normally. And there's way more of them than there should be.
Sweet. How do the green Aja get around the second oath?
So the second oath says you won't use the power as a weapon except against Shadow Spawn or Dark Friends. They don't make weapons. They just don't. They use it directly as a weapon.
Okay.
So they go to battlefields against Shadow Spawn and just start hurling fire at them.
Got it. All right, and question 20. This one I thought was kind of fun. It might lead into a discussion we can use to wrap up here. There's evidence in the books to suggest that the mythology of the Wheel of Time encompasses a past or future Earth, as in our planet. If the books are set in the Third Age, what age are we in now?
3, 2, 1. So there's a lot of speculation that we are in the Second Age, which would be known as the Age of Legends, because they have a lot of allegories that sustain, that talk about like stuff that we have. And there's a couple of scenes in some of the early books that they flash back all the way to the Age of Legends. Like they clearly had cell phones, they clearly had airplanes, they clearly had cars. Like they had a lot of things that we take for granted. They had indoor plumbing. That was another one. One interesting that I always liked is they talk about, there's one reference in one book where somebody mentions like, oh, one of the Forsaken said that back in the day, anybody could use this thing that requires the one power, but they just used what was known as the standing flows, which sounds an awful lot like electricity. Like even people that don't know how to make this stuff work can make it work by plugging it into the wall. So there. Is that enough of an explanation?
Yeah, some of the evidence I'd seen suggested that that the age you're talking about is the first age, not the second.
Oh, before the, well, so they never reference, like, they call it the Age of Legends. They never say if it's the second or the first or the fourth or the fifth.
Yeah, that's it. That they think the age. So I'm not going to give you that one. So yeah, screw you.
Oh, face.
There's some fun, if you want to look through, there's quotes from a lot of the books I found on this wiki I was looking at of things where they describe future or past events that sound like, the moon landing or a Mercedes-Benz logo or Queen Elizabeth or fun things like that. So it's clever.
He did a good job of sprinkling references to things that exist in the real world today.
Okay, so your final score is 17 of 20. Josh, you definitely, if you ever go on Mastermind, you need to tell them the Wheel of Time.
I need to read up on the stuff surrounding the Wheel of Time, obviously. But yeah, I told you. I've read those books way too many times.
Nailed it, man. How many, were you keeping my total? I lost track.
No, it was confirmed that you lost hard. I stopped listening.
I'll make a score sheet in the show notes.
Listen. This is more of the function of I just had no frame of reference for what was going to be hard and what was going to be easy.
Yeah, Alicia was kind of pushing me to make them a little bit harder, but I wanted them to just, I thought they brought out a good discussion.
I'm very happy that I brought up the asymmetry as one of my worries at the beginning of this conversation, and then it flipped around and you were the victim of the thing I was worried about.
Yeah, it's okay, man. All right. So, that concludes Bad at Magic Mastermind Edition. Maybe we'll revisit something similar at some point in the future. I'd be interested to hear from our audience, if you want to go on our Facebook or our Reddit. And what topic would you say if you were going to be a guest on Mastermind and have to be asked questions about something you know a lot about? Speaking of interaction with... Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to totally bust into your transition into the interaction in the next episode stuff. I think maybe we should revisit this topic on a future date, but instead of us trying to work in a vacuum of something we don't know about but the other person does, we should pick something we both know about and then ask each other questions about that.
It's almost like we need an independent arbiter, like have our wives come up with the questions or something.
I can tell you right now that my wife would be super happy to tell me no to my face when I asked her that question.
Okay, but your wife surprised me this week, and I want to give her a shout out because she was one of the only people that voted for my book that I nominated for the reading list.
She's much more of a nonfiction reader too, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay.
So how did the book poll come out?
So I tallied up the book poll, and this is as unscientific as a poll as you could have, because I think you and I both voted multiple times. But the voting, so the 4 books to remind our audience is How We Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen, Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, The Hero with 1,000 Faces by I Can't Remember, and Legion, The Many Lives of Stephen Leeds by Brandon Sanderson. And the Facebook voting came out at an even, each book got an even number of votes. So
each book got 2 votes, which was hilarious.
No help, thank you, Facebook. So we had to go to Reddit for the tiebreaker. So on Reddit, people only voted for your books, even me. So
that's something I wanted to bring up because you, like you said, we both voted twice. Like I voted on Facebook and I voted on Reddit, but I voted for the same book both times. You voted for two different books, man.
I changed my vote on Reddit. And when I looked at it, I'm like, who did that? Oh, that's me. Oh, why did I do that? It wouldn't have changed the outcome, though. The winner is Legion, The Many Lives of Stefan Leeds, with 38% of the vote. So I'll put that up, and now I know how to spend my Audible credit this next month.
So apologies to everybody that isn't a big fan of the book reviews. My only consolation to you is that this book is really good. It's very interesting. It is unlike any book I've ever read, and it's only 10 hours long. And even that, it's broken up into 3 like little vignettes, so you can easily digest like one of these stories over the course of a long afternoon's worth of chores.
Yeah. Okay. And that's kind of our teaser for next time. So next time, Josh and I will be doing the usual, just bad English and talking about whatever happened during the week, and then we'll be doing a book review of Legion, The Many Lives of Stefan Leeds by Brandon Sanderson. So if you'd like to give that one a listen, great. If someone from Audible's out there and you want to sponsor the podcast.
We talk about a lot of books here.
Yeah. And I think that's it.